Let's get straight into it. A lot of hot topics today. How you feeling today?
I feel pretty good, pretty good.
Feeling good?
Ready for war.
Ready for war. My name is Datwan. This is LJ.
Welcome to the new age.
The stock market is getting crazy.
Before we begin, we would like to give out our full disclaimer. None of the information that is disseminated on this live stream is financial advice. Please check with a licensed financial advisor. Do your own due diligence before you take any actions and making financial decisions. Let's get to it.
Okay, so Jerome Powell, our favorite uncle, Jerome Powell, chairman of the Federal Reserve, came out with some pretty interesting comments. I'm going to read them off to you. It says the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said Tuesday that the U.S. economy has been permanently changed by the COVID pandemic, and it is important that the central bank adapt to those changes. We're not simply going back to the economy that we had before the pandemic, Powell said at a Fed virtual town hall. We need to watch carefully as the economy continues to get through the pandemic and try to understand the ways that the economy has changed and what the implications are for our policy. So it's a lot there. But what do you think Jerome is trying to say to the banks and the people?
Well, I think that he's putting softly that inflation is inevitable. We can't expect to have we can't expect to have the same approach in our pocketbooks as we did pre-pandemic.
Yeah. So, again, what do you think he's saying about the banks? Saying to the banks directly.
Rates are going to spike.
Yes. I'm glad you.
And when we say rates, we're talking about interest rates.
Right.
So the cost to borrow is going to be a lot more. We've been trending at zero interest rates throughout this pandemic.
Right.
So he's pretty much alluding to and preparing us to make, or the banks to make some, adjustments moving forward.
Right. So it's interesting to me. I'm glad you brought up the interest rates because it's a lot of fear in the marketplace. And it's a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace. And when you get pretty much one of the big leaders of the marketplace, Jerome Powell, I wouldn't say sending out a warning, but sending out more of a guideline to the market. It's interesting to how do we move from here, because he gives out this language that isn't always so direct.
Right.
And as an investor, you kind of like, which way do I go? So analyzing what Jerome Powell was saying, I'm glad you brought up the interest rates. It's a lot of fear. It's a lot of uncertainty. Do you think a market scare, like a big market scare, a big market retracement, and maybe a big market crash happens before he raises interest rates or after he raises interest rates?
Man, that's an interesting question. I think I'm not sure, but I'm prepared. I'm prepared, and I'm preparing for a market crash. We've been talking about all week how we've eclipsed the debt and repo market, right?
Right.
Been exceeding $1 trillion 4 days straight, dating back to last week. I don't know what it is as of yesterday, but from last week to early this week, we've eclipsed that 4 days straight.
Right.
The last time we've reached our highs was in 2008 during the Great Recession, and we've more than doubled that. Again, 4 days in a row.
Right.
So I'm preparing. I'm looking at various stocks that to hedge my bet against the market crash.
I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of what sparked this intrigue in what Jerome Powell was saying, in this scariness and shakiness in the market. Like to this day, we're seeing the UVXY pop again. So the UVXY was up $2.48
on
yesterday.
Okay.
It's up $2 in the pre-market.
So that's $4,
right?
Or over $4,
right?
$5.
And again, just to clarify, the UVXY is a hedge against the market. It's basically betting against the market. If the market crashes, the UVXY goes up. It's a short against the market. So what's your thoughts on the UVXY? We seen it jump, a couple weeks ago. It's jumping again. This is always intriguing to me.
Yeah, my thoughts on it is, first off, it's a risky play, right? With high rewards.
Right.
Very risky because of the volatility, right? We get news one day and it spikes up.
Right.
The next day or 2 days, it drastically can drop,
right.
As it seems like the news that we received previous days begins to disseminate, So I think it's a very risky stock, and you got to have the temperament to invest in something like the UVXY.
Right. So again, excuse me. Again, it's a lot of shakiness in the market. We're going to go to Antonio for a rundown shortly. My final question to you before we go to him: would you personally play the UVXY for a 2022 market crash?
Personally, I'm looking at it. To be totally honest, I am looking at the UVXY. If I get into it, I'll get into it before 2022, and I'll trade it. My strategy would be to trade it as a leap play.
Okay. Antonio gives the rundown.
Not looking too good this morning at all. It's a bloody pre-market.
Oh, God.
Woo!
Oh, God.
Everyone's favorite movie theater chain, AMC, is down 3.25% this morning in pre-market. GameStop down 1%. Tesla down 1% as well, almost going to 2%. Virgin Galactic, you guys' favorite, almost down 2%. ChargePoint down 2%. The S&P 500 almost down 1%. It's looking like a bloody morning, guys.
Ooh.
Yeah, the stock. I'm calling it the shake market because it's shaky as hell right now. So
let's get into this. What you saying that the stock market being shaky, and what Antonio reading down the bloodbath that's happening currently. We just talked about, Jerome Powell's sentiments posted on yesterday. We talked about eclipsing the $1 trillion 4 days in a row in the repo market, highest since 2008. In fact, over doubling that. My question is the stock market weird, or is the stock market rigged? The reason I asked that, Antwain, if you could pull up the PE and PGE ratio. AMC and GME, right? The PE and PEG ratio is a indicator if a stock, where stock should be rated at, right? Profit and earnings, and profit and earnings growth, right? So fundamentally, neither one of these companies, during the time that they spiked, and probably even after, should have ever reached the heights that they reached, according, if we just go off of the PE and the PEG ratios, right? Yet and still they did. So as an investor, one would think that this is really weird that they would spike as high when fundamentally they don't look like a play that you should be going after, right? Ton of people made hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars in these two plays, right? In a short span of time. Companies like Tesla, Amazon, Google, some would say that they're overvalued. Tesla, during the pandemic, reached over double its PE and PEG earnings since pre-pandemic. Rather weird, right? What's going on in the stock market? Talk to me about that. Before you go there, I'm going to give two examples about it being rigged, right? It's a report that came out that Netflix had insider trading going on, and that the SEC cracked down on 3 employees from Netflix. You see Netflix trending upwards, right? You got companies like Apple trending downward as of the close of yesterday, and then pre-market, I believe Apple was down as well.
Right.
Yet they got big news out of China. It's an article, Antwain, if you could pull that up, in China talking about, posted yesterday talking about the demand for Apple iPhones in the China market, right? But it's only trading at around $140-something, right? Nancy Pelosi, she's regulates some of the same stocks that her husband has made millions of dollars on in trading, right? Yet, and still we see Netflix employees being cracked down on by the SEC, and nothing we hear reported about Nancy Pelosi and her husband, who's making millions off of suspected insider trading. Is the stock market weird or is it rigged?
I would say both. I think they don't always correlate either. I think it being weird from a fundamental value-based assets, you could say that's weird. And what I mean by that is Tesla being possibly overvalued, but being close to basically almost $1,000 in share price, whereas though let's say an IBM or something that's a little bit low, like let's say Ford. Let's even say Ford.
Right, because we're gonna get into Ford next.
Yeah, let's say Ford is under, I think, $14, $15, and if you really look at it, fundamentally, they sell more cars, way more than Tesla. So a lot of people are playing Tesla on a speculative and betting on and investing in the future of
Same
Tesla.
with AMC and GME as far as the speculative play. Would you say that? You said they're playing Ford as a speculative play.
No, I didn't say that. I said they're playing Tesla as a speculative
play.
You're
right. Well, Tesla, right? They playing Tesla, and I said you would say that. I would say the same with AMC and GME. They're playing. Most people are playing that as speculative as well.
Yes, but they don't even correlate. The reason why people are playing AMC and GME is because of short squeeze. The reason why
which is speculative.
Right. I'm just saying they don't correlate. Both are under the speculative umbrella, but they don't correlate.
Right. That was my only point. Go ahead.
So what I'm saying is, if the weirdness comes in with those type of stocks, those speculative type of stocks, the ones that are valued or share price is valued at a certain point, but their value may not be actually there from a company fundamental base, right? The rig part is what you just read about the Nancy Pelosi husband doing. I think they were doing option trading and doing leap plays,
right?
And then the SEC doesn't crack down on her, but they crack down on 3 Netflix insider traders. The only reason why I would push back on that is because they actually work for a company. Whereas though Nancy Pelosi, even though she governs, she doesn't work for a company. So it's easier to crack down on someone like that's in the inside operation of Netflix, because that's actually on the stock market.
So I disagree. So what? That sounds like a loophole to me.
Oh, it's definitely a loophole.
Okay, so how so is it okay for them to continue to get a so as an employee of a company, I can't trade the shares. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just telling you what it sounds like I hear from you, Skip. As an employee of the company, it's not fair for me to trade and make money off of the company that I work for. But as a governing, trusted governing official of the system, it's okay for me or my husband to make millions and billions of dollars off of.
Okay, obviously you must have woke up on the wrong side of the bed today, because I clearly said the stock market is weird and it is rigged. Both.
Right, but
I'm not
deal with my question. Answer my question.
What's your question?
Is it okay? Well, I'm just talking about the rig part, right? Because you mentioned that, you mentioned about the employees that you could see how the employees can be cracked down on, right? Am I right? Did you not say that? You can see how they can be cracked down on because they work for the company, yet and still over here with Nancy Pelosi and her husband is no proof or something that you alluded to. I mentioned that, so it's loopholes.
And what did I say?
Tell me.
I said, yes, it is loopholes.
Right, so is it, how do you, is loopholes, how do we move forward with those loopholes?
If I was running for president, I'm not. But if I was, I would cancel out those loopholes. How? I'm not sure, because again, they don't work directly for a company. So it's easier to get someone for, if we're talking about, if we're talking about insider trading.
Right, which is what? Explain that.
When a person within the company is trading within the company.
Okay.
When let's say they're not supposed to, or whatever the stipulations or guidelines in that company, they cannot just sell their stock, or it's a certain parameter on how they can do it, basically.
Okay.
So again,
and that only applies, just for clarity purposes, is that only applied to employees working for a company? And I'm asking that again because we got the issue over here where we have a governing body or governing authority.
You, Antonio, look that up if it only applies to employees or board members or however you want to call it.
Right, because it's just it's a question that you can give us clarity on.
Right. Again.
Insider trading.
Again, I'm not running for president.
Mm-hmm.
America probably wish I was. I'm not. So, again, it's weird and it's rigged. It's both, and they don't always correlate. The weirdness is over here. The riggedness is over here. Sometimes it correlates. Sometimes it doesn't.
So let's deal with AMC and GME. What happened with them? Because the big institutional firms, right? The legacy firms. They was able to.
Hold on. I feel like you ducking the smoke a little bit.
Talk to me. I had the question.
Yeah, and I done answered it 10 times, and you.
All right. Well, what's the smoke that you feel like I'm ducking? Talk to me.
You still haven't acknowledged my answer.
What your answer was? What? I'm not clear on what your answer is.
You basically was like, well, what can we do about insider trading?
Okay, so your answer was what?
And all I was saying was Netflix, the employees at Netflix, the 3 that was sued by the SEC or investigated by the SEC, they are technically, that is insider trading because they're in that stock. They're in that company. Whereas though Nancy Pelosi isn't. And it was her husband that was doing it.
Okay. So again, when I signed
hold on. again,
Because I'm going to deal with that.
okay, you can deal with
Because you
it.
mentioned her husband. Go ahead. Like that means something.
Why doesn't it mean something?
When I signed up to start trading, right, they ask you on that form, does a relative work for a specific company or are they a financial advisor, yada, 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 right? It's a list and its parameters and guidelines that if my relative works or falls within any of them guidelines, then I will be disqualified or I will be limited in how I can approach my trading. So it's the same should apply.
Well,
this is my argument
well,
here.
is
The
that-
same that applies. This is my argument. The same thing that
Go ahead.
applies for them over here. It shouldn't be loopholes for our governing body and elected official and their relatives, close friends, or whoever to make millions and millions, as Trump would say, billions and billions and billions and billions off of.
You act like I'm going around here waving a flag for Nancy Pelosi because I damn sure ain't doing that. What I will say is, it's like I already said. I didn't already answered it, and we can move on. I'll go to Antonio to see if he got an update for us.
But before we get to Antonio,
Hold on. Can I finish saying?
yeah,
what
what I'm saying. Before we get to Antonio, I want to give another example. Well, we'll revisit it after Antonio gives us a rundown. I'm sorry.
Okay, so again, it's easier to get people for insider trading. Maybe Nancy Pelosi and them is doing something else. I don't even I don't know what you really qualify that as. But they are actually in that stock. They are actually in that company. So that
On the Netflix side.
on the Netflix
Okay,
side.
gotcha.
So it seems to me that fits more of the criteria of insider trading.
Okay.
Antonio.
Well, insider trading can mean that a person buys or sells a stock based on information that's not available to the public. The person may be a corporate officer, direct employee, or someone who received the non-public information. So basically, if you find out some information that's not public and you use that information to buy or sell a stock, that's insider trading.
Right.
Okay. Thank you for that clarity.
Yeah,
So and that supports my argument, right?
Yes.
But before I want to give another example of it being rigged, right? The thing that happened with AMC and GME, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know that the legacy firms and big hedge funds, right, shorted the stock more than 100% of the shares that was available, right? And no crackdown came about still today. It's under investigation and, laws are trying to be pushed through, to, at least this is what's being reported, right? To, while people are losing money,
Right.
and they're steady gaining money or not being held accountable, and there's no repercussions for the market makers and the hedge funds for these types of actions and behavior.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on that? Because at some point, there has to be a level playing field. People, I'm finishing with this statement. People, jobs were shut down, right? A lot of people entered into this trading and market space as a supplement. Some did it as a new way, a new strategy where they wouldn't have to go back to, all types of reasons, right? But when we get into this space, we find out that you have this type of behavior allowed on one side of the market versus, let's just say the institutional investing side of the market versus the retail side of the market. And you see the constant manipulation taking place. Help me. What's your take on that?
It's honestly, I'm tired. I'm tired. It's a lot to digest. It's a lot to.
And fortunately, you was able to amass some, some good money off of your strategy with this particular stock.
Right, but fortunately I have, but unfortunately I probably would have amassed a lot more if it wasn't for this rigged system. And to be honest, like, I could go on and on about how rigged it is and how weird it is. At the end of the day, it shows you. Let me say this. We can talk about the hedge funds. We can talk about the versus the retail traders, right? We can talk about, the banks and all that correlated. At the end of the day, those who govern need to step up. Those who, if I'm in the NBA and y'all keep allowing Patrick Beverly to foul me, the refs. Where are the refs?
Where are the refs?
Where are the refs? And that's what it is in the stock market right now.
So it's speculative that some of the refs are in bed with some of the market makers.
I mean, I don't put that past them. I don't like that. Ain't even news to me.
Right.
Like, to be honest, if you're a new retail investor / trader, or looking into get into investing and trading, it comes with the territory. It comes with the territory. You gotta expect to be fighting an uphill battle, and I fought that uphill battle. I'm still fighting it, but I'm here today, and like, that shouldn't hinder you.
This is where I wanted to go at. Talk to us.
That shouldn't hinder you from doing what you need to do as far as due diligence, strategy, overcoming fear, and relying on your convictions in the investment and plays that you make.
Right. So I would say that a lot of it, that was perfect, Datwan. A lot of it, in approaching anything, but specifically the stock market, you should definitely educate yourself, right? And then find out what strategy works best for you, right? You got different approaches that that people take every day, right? In this space, and it's opportunity throughout the market at large, no matter what strategy you decide. But I tell people all the time, you got to do what works for you, because what worked for me may not work for you, right? And vice versa. What works for you may not work for me, right? So I would encourage everybody to do your own due diligence and everything like Datwan just ran down, and do your best to educate yourself and find out which strategy works best for you as you approach the opportunities, because we got to remember that it's still opportunity in this space.
Right. So let's get into this another scare, scare in the stock market. This chip shortage. So Ford stock slid as Toyota slashes production. Volkswagen warns on chip shortage. So it's a lot of things that have been happening as far as the EV companies and the car companies who's trying to become EV and all that other stuff. All these vehicle companies are being affected by chip shortages, and honestly, it's going to continue to play out to be more than just car companies that's affected by this chip shortage.
Right, because some of the 5G space and some of the satellites, are suffering because of the chip shortages.
Right. So before I get your take on the chip shortage and what's happening, how it's affecting these stocks and the companies, I'm going to go to Antonio for a rundown. Let's get it.
Still a bloody morning. AMC almost down to 3%. Tesla almost down to 2%. GME, GameStop almost down at 1%. Which the only thing that's kind of crazy this morning, Robinhood is down 8% in pre-market.
And that's interesting.
It is interesting.
But on the crypto side, we have a Bitcoin up this morning, just over 44,000. Ethereum knocking on the $3,000 door right now. And everyone's favorite Dogecoin is sitting at 29 cents.
Okay.
Mm.
Thank you for that update.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I'm gonna actually go to Ford stock price. So they're at $13, but they're down 23 cents in the pre-market. So that's interesting. Let me go to Neo. Neo is I know Neo was heavily affected by the chip shortage. Once the chip shortage rumors and all, news came out, that really got a hit by it. Neo was at 38.86 with a down being down $1.14 in the pre-market. So, and then he read off Tesla. So, what's your take on this chip shortage?
You know, it's interesting. It's interesting because a lot of production has been brought to a halt, right? And we know that if production is brought to a halt, then progression is brought to a halt, right? And we're talking about us transitioning into the fourth industrial revolution and the digital age, et cetera, so have you, right? But it's always opportunity in a crisis. One of the stocks that we haven't, and / industries, I should say, that we haven't covered yet, right? That's, I think, is a big sleeping giant. Can bring us, I believe, not only can it will bring a solution to situations like that. That industry is 3D printing.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to explode the volume in which production happens. But again, like I said on yesterday or earlier in the week, the downside to that, a lot of people would be put out of jobs. America's economy shifted when we began to move all of our labor into the Chinese market. Mm-hmm. Early on, we had, it really evaporated the middle class, right? The middle class was able to sustain themselves in the 60s, 70s, early 80s because of companies like GME and Ford and, American-made companies and the factories. We was producing our own parts, et cetera. And then when we shifted over to China because of cheap labor, the trade was cheap labor but at the expense of the American people, or the middle class.
Right.
This industry will see a replay of what happened. Yet I believe it'll be 10 times worse, right? As it relates to the job market, right. Because if you can pay machines, if you can invest money into machines to one time, let's say even more than one when you update the parts and things like that, versus paying an employee $20 an hour, $30 an hour, giving them raises, yada yada, as time go on,
yeah,
to support their value, yet you paying more than, let's just say, a tenth of that, right, for a machine that will work 24/7. You ain't got to check on it. You ain't got, so my take on it is going to be a very interesting transition. We're suffering from it now as it relates to production and progression, but I think that we'll see a flip side of it. It's quietly happening now. We see it in the food industry. Mm-hmm. It's already taking place, with these Beyond Meats and things like that. But the same thing will translate into, the job market and manufacturing and production.
You kind of lost me on the Beyond Meats, but other than that.
No, I'm just talking about the 3D industry, the 3D printing.
I'm saying, what do that got to do with this?
They're printing meat. They're printing lettuce. They're printing meats. Yeah, that's already taking place.
And what do you mean by printing meat? What do you mean by printing meat?
The machines are printing meats. The 3D machines are printing meats. They're selling them in the markets. Antonio, look up some companies.
Yeah, please.
So that for the listening viewers and to help us,
Good,
you know.
good.
So I'm looking up companies that print meat.
Meat actually prints meat.
I'm just that threw me off.
Yeah, that like
Look it up.
Was I the only one who just said, hold on, what is
I just need y'all to look it up,
I got you.
you know, and if I'm wrong, I stand to be corrected. But also,
That's a point if you're wrong.
also look up
That's
the companies.
2 points.
Also look up the companies that are doing it if it's not Beyond Meat.
Huh?
I believe.
Go ahead. While Antonio is looking it up,
Oh man, no, that's
what's your take on it? What's your take on not the 3D printing, but the chip shortages
the chip shortage.
and the scare that's
Honestly, I kind of wish the chip shortages scared the market a little bit more, to be honest with you. I think so. Something for like, let's say a Neo, that pretty much was really gaining momentum again. It had its run, like I think, in early January. I can't even remember, but it had a good
it was
run.
early January because I made money off of
then
that play.
February came, it died down. In March, the hype and the momentum was coming.
Mm-hmm.
And then the chip shortage happened.
And during that time, I lost money.
Right. So I think I kind of wish it would scare the market a little bit more and kind of retrace something like a Neo, something.
Why?
Because I believe long term, and I'm glad you're hitting on this point about 3D printing and stuff. Long term, bet on companies evolving and being able to stabilize their chip shortage. I think it won't be a problem long term. So if you can get in at lower prices, then
Right, that's where I want you to go at, because you said you hope where you were going there, and I was you bringing it up now.
Yeah.
Why do Datwan hope that it scares people more so it can retrace? Go ahead, you going there now?
again, Neo was around what, $50?
45. Oh no, it got all the way up to like 48 or something.
Around that time.
No,
though.
60 something.
Yeah, around that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So ever since then, ever since the chip shortage, now it's at like 38.
Okay.
And it went all the way down to like 32, 33.
Mm-hmm.
So just think about that. If I can get Neo
At half price.
at a very good price because of chip scare,
Mm-hmm.
that's lovely. Because long term, I'm betting on companies being able to supply their chips.
And what is Neo? What company is because it's
Neo is the
Remember, before I thought it was just a car company. That's how I looked at it, and I referenced it. But you corrected me. You and Antonio gave me more insight on.
No, Neo.
Neo.
Neo is a EV car company that is evolving into an energy play, just like Tesla did. So it has Neo homes and like the Neo batteries and stuff. So
And they're also partnered with the Chinese government,
right,
which is huge.
right. So I think they can really tackle that marketplace. And it's also been kind of some rumors that Tesla isn't doing good in China. So if you want to bet on a EV company to supply China in that region, the Asian region, I would probably bet on Neo. And that's ticker symbol NIO, Antonio.
Well, Beyond Meat definitely uses 3D printing.
Okay.
The company is using 3D printing to get what could be a game changer for the alternative meat industry. They can so basically they're saying that using the 3D printing is 150 times faster than their competitors.
So do
Right.
you see? Reread what you just said about the 150 times faster.
And are they using it now? Just to, clean it up.
Yeah, they are definitely using it now. It's 150 times faster than their competitors, allowing them to make 1.5 tons of meat per hour.
Per hour. Now, can y'all understand what I was saying about the job? That's going to eradicate jobs.
Right.
Because if I can pay for a machine, if I can invest one time, and this is the scary part, and that's why I encourage everybody to start making preparations, because we no longer, just like Jerome Powell said, he said it nicely, and he was dealing with, most people would think that he was dealing with a particular segment of the economy. Our whole world is different,
right,
because of this pandemic. We've literally transitioned into a new age. By the way, that's the name of our company. We've literally transitioned into a new age, while most people don't even know that this transition has happened, which is why y'all laughed at me when I first talked about the 3D printing.
We definitely laughed at you.
Right, because this stuff is not being reported abroad.
No, and I'm glad you're going there, because the 3D printing, I know Elon Musk's brother is heavily into like 3D printing in the food space.
Mm-hmm.
What threw me off was Beyond Meat.
Mm-hmm.
That's what threw me off, because their slogan and what they stand for is like this healthy, alternative, vegan, and
well, look, think about it.
I'm not saying 3D printing ain't healthy or but
think about it.
Look, remember Antwain, you remember the SpongeBob episode when they was eating like those digital burgers or something? Like that's what. Yeah.
So what's interesting about it, and you said they supposed to be a vegan company. So my question is 3D printing? It's not technically meat, and vegans are not. They don't eat meat.
But don't they eat some? They don't eat trash either.
I ain't say that. I don't know that about vegans. I just know they advertise that they don't eat meat.
I'm just saying, like, you would think they just eat plant-based.
Yeah.
Is 3D printing considered plant-based?
Well, plant-based would be considered growing, not printing.
So, listen, 3D Beyond Meat gonna come down here. Beyond Meat gonna come down here.
Now we're laughing about it, but it's very interesting to see the world that we've transitioned and are transitioning into. And this particular industry is a giant sleeper as it relates, because not only are they already in the printing of meats and vegetables, but they've also moved into the printing of homes.
Right.
We'll see it in the medical space. So it's going to take over this. Again, this is why I say the job market will be eradicated hundreds of times worse than it was during the eradication of the middle class, when we shift our production over into the China market for cheap labor.
Yeah, I'm trying to find Kimball Musk. That's his name, not Elon Musk. Kimball Musk. That's Elon Musk's brother. I'm trying to find what his company is.
Okay, Antonio, give us a rundown on the S&P, Dow Jones, and NASDAQ, where it is right now, currently trading.
All three sectors are still in the red in pre-market.
Okay.
S&P 500 still down. The NASDAQ still down. It's gonna be an interesting day. Like, how do you think that the market's gonna rebound today, or you think it's gonna be just a red day?
Honestly, I think that because of everything that's happening with the Jerome Powell, whenever Jerome Powell speaks, the market reacts. So with him, that press release that on yesterday, stating that our economy we can't expect for our economy to rebound or go back to pre-pandemic times. I think that'll have and is having a direct impact on the market today.
So do you think that the stock market being red and the crypto being in the green correlates with each other?
I think that, yes, to answer your question, I do think that it correlates with each other. Anytime you have a solution make, so to speak, right? Or a demand, let's say it that way, right? The demand for something generally correlates with, a bottom line or dollars, translating into dollars accrued. So if a company is providing demand for, providing supply for the demand that's in the marketplace, and I'm using this to talk about the blockchain and the crypto markets, we'll see a direct result in the purse or pocketbook or bottom line of that company. And so I think that that's what's happening in our financial space right now, as well as we're transitioning in our overall markets, in industries. I think that that's happening in the crypto space as well.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, so Kimball Musk is getting into him, Sir Richard Branson, the one who owns Virgin Galactic. They are getting into the 3D printing food industry. I know Kimball Musk, I couldn't find nothing definitive, but Kimball Musk is doing kind of like a 3D farming.
Yeah, so that's...
Yeah, and what he's going to allow people to do is basically farm for themselves, and you won't need a bunch of land or anything. You'll just need a container or crates in it, and that's how you'll grow your food. It's definitely a science to it. It's right. Yeah.
You know why I'm shaking my head, Dayton? Because people are probably going to get tired of hearing me say this. The world is no longer the same.
That's why.
And I've said it 3-4 times on this particular broadcast, live broadcast. I'm going to do a segment later on, a direct segment, we'll release it later today, on decentralization, or the war on crypto, decentralization versus centralization. Because what you're talking about ties right into that.
Right.
And me listening to you, most people think of that as it relates to just the financial system. And it's always reflected in that space. But the opportunity, we're talking about, you just broke down what's going to take place with farming, and everybody be having the opportunity to grow their own farming, yada, through this 3D printing industry, right?
Right.
And that's decentralization.
Right. Let me ask
go
you. I want to ask the room a question.
Go ahead.
When we see these futuristic movies, have everybody seen WALL-E?
I haven't. You've been trying to get me to look at that.
Nobody's seen WALL-E? Okay. Anyway, WALL-E's in the future. They on another planet, and basically the system, the technology of that world, it's in the future, takes care of them. They sitting in chairs and they rise them around the facility and world or whatever the case may be, right? When we think of the future, what do we think about? We think of that, right? We think of more of a
Matrix and...
Yeah, Matrix. Thank you, Matrix, right? Don't we all think about a Matrix pretty much? What we talking about now is more self-sufficient, decentralized, independent from the system, right? So we're having this good discussion about 3D printing and where that's going in AI and all that. And then we're having this other discussion about the system and it being rigged and all that stuff. Where do we see the world going? Is it going to be, where do you see the world going as far as people? Are the people going to be more dependent on the system, like in a WALL-E, or less dependent from the system, like Neo in the Matrix?
I'm gonna say this. Without COVID, more like Wally. With COVID happening, more like Neo. I think that people become more independent, knowing that at the end of the day, nobody has my back but me. If I can't supply myself with what I need, nobody else will. So that's why I say the future will become more individuals becoming independent.
Let me say this. Let me say this. How can you say that if the government
That's what
is
I'm going at.
funding
Right. That's where I'm going at.
a lot of households, a lot of state institutions,
Right.
like it's a lot of government
businesses.
Right. It's a lot of government aid.
By the way, all this ties directly into the stock market. We haven't moved away from that. If you really listen to the undertone of this,
We haven't yeah, thank you for adding that. So how can you say that if it's been more government aid than ever?
Well, how long can the government aid last?
that's a great question, Antonio.
I agree with that as well.
I think, let me answer that. I think they do that through this digitization of assets. See, moving in the same direction that Datwan started in, a few minutes ago with the digitization of currency allows them, and y'all often hear me talk about the velocity of money is what makes money, but the digitization of currency allows them to be able to do it. See, when you got to print money, you got to pull resources like trees, paper, et cetera, so heavy, right? Ink, et cetera. But when you turn that same currency and the value of it into just digital form, which you see that in your direct deposit, et cetera, that's already taking place, and you wipe out the ink, the paper, and the resources needed to print the money, it makes it simple and easy for them to do that.
So let me ask you this, Antonio. Right? If the job market as we know it will be, I don't want to say eradicated, but will be permanently changed, and you're saying people's gonna become more independent, you would think so, right? You're
Right.
not depending on a job that it seems to me that's why a UBI gets talked about, universal basic income.
Right.
The government aid, the food stamps, stuff like that. Government housing. Are you sure? And it's just a question to you. Are you sure? Are you betting with people becoming more independent with less jobs? Or do you think those people are going to look to the government for help?
Well, let me ask you this. Well, to answer your question, what I was talking about more of a mindset of becoming more independent. Not saying that people are going to take actions becoming more independent, because the odds are stacked against people right now with not having a job market and relying on government aid. Like, the odds are stacked against people, but it might change the mindset to become more of an individual that's independent.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was alluding to.
Okay, so you're strictly talking about mindset.
Yeah, more than action.
Okay, yeah, mindset,
So-
action.
So
Right.
the time is now 9:28.
Hold on, let me say something real quick.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So just to recap, we're talking about, this is a huge conversation and it affects so many people. We're talking about crypto being able to possibly provide you your own banking system versus relying on the bank. We're talking about 3D farming and printing, possibly being able to, help you do independent farming versus relying on Purdue, right? Or any other farming system that we got out here. So, LJ is going to do a video on this huge topic because we're talking about decentralization versus centralization.
And the war on crypto.
I don't know where you may fall on this topic. I think it's a very interesting topic. If you like this video, give us a like, give us a comment, and tell us what you think about this interesting topic. We'll be back live tomorrow, and that's all I got. You got anything else?
I ain't got nothing else. We'll see you all later on or tomorrow morning. Great job.
Let's get it. Welcome to the new age.